Hey, all right. Welcome to part 5 of our Regimental Fire and Fury. Learn how to play. Both of us, all of us, together. Uh, Look at the charge phase for this one. The charge phase is the third and final phase of a player's turn. So this kind of combines everything, and for the tutorial, we're going to kind of work almost through a scenario where we'll roll the order dice and the movement dice, see if the unit passes, declare a charge, move to contact, defensive fire from that charge, and then the actual charge with the hand to hand at the end. That's going to be the objective for me, and then get through maybe 2 of those, and just hopefully that'll familiarize all of us with the charge phase and the hand to hand portion of this game. Take a little pause there, do some editing, yada yada yada. All right, so hang a second. Okay, of course, there's 3 different types of people involved, or 3 different types of units involved in. Nope. All right, there's several different units involved in this charge and hand to hand that occurs afterwards. You got your attacker, you got your defender, you got your incidental stands, and you've got your supports. Probably pretty intuitive each one of those is. You got the incidental stands was the only one I didn't amount to 100%. Personally, defending unit only has incidental stands in a combat if at least one stand is within 1 inch of a charging unit, and half or less of its stands are in the path of the charge. Only defending infantry in line or extended line and dismounted cavalry can be counted for incidental stands. A defending unit with only incidental stands must contribute at least 1 stand to the combat and may include up to half of the unit's stands, rounded down. So if you have 12, down to 6, I guess. The controlling player decides how many stands to contribute. Incidental stands are added to the total number of defending stands when determining which side receives the die roll modifier for being outnumbered. Okay. Supports are both charging and defending units may be supported. Support is a friendly unit whose front is no more than 2 inches behind the rear of the unit being supported and facing the same direction. The unit is allowed to support only other friendly unit, but that one participating unit may be supported by other units as well. Either the unit providing support or the unit being supported must have its center point overlapped by the other unit's formation. This can result in a unit being in position to support more than one friendly unit. Because a unit may support only one other unit, the controlling player must decide before resolving the charge combat which unit it will support. I remember reading something earlier that you have to be in line to support. Only infantry or cavalry in line may give support. Infantry in line can support other infantry in line or extended line, dismounted cavalry, and unlimbered artillery. Cavalry must be in line and charging or countercharging in order to support other charging or countercharging cavalry in line or extended line. Cavalry may not support infantry and vice versa. Troops in extended line, field and march column, dismounted or stationary cavalry, and guns cannot provide support. All stands in each supporting unit are counted when determining the numbers involved in charge combat. A supporting unit does not contribute die roll modifiers to, but will suffer the same combat effects as the unit it is supporting. A unit cannot provide support if it is participating unit in another charge combat. Okay, that's pretty slick. There's a bunch of examples in the book, and then we're going to go on to the charge combat procedure. All right, so hang on to your hats. We've got steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, charge combat procedure. The player selects one charge combat to resolve and identifies all participating, attacking, and defending units. and any defending units with incidental stands. That's number 1. Number 2, each side totals the die roll modifiers for each participating unit. There's a table, of course, for that. You love a good table. I do. The opposing players each roll one 10-sided die and add to their base die result only the modifiers belonging to the best unit with the highest total modifiers to get a modified die result. Subtract the defender's modified result from the attacker's modified results to get the die result difference. Index down this is number 4. Index down the die result difference column on the charge table, and then cross-reference to the adjacent effects column. If the die result difference is greater than 0, the attacker wins the combat. The defender wins if the die result difference is less than 0. If the die result difference is 0, a desperate struggle effect occurs. That's kind of cool. I don't know. I'm excited about that. Both sides remove losses and mark units according to the effect, and immediately roll again with adjusted modifiers to continue the combat. A combat with a desperate struggle must be resolved before moving on to the next combat phase. So charge combat effects are applied simultaneously to both sides immediately after completing the die roll procedure. Possible effects include mark troop units disordered and gun stands silenced, remove one or more troop or gun stands as casualties, or damage one gun stand, hold position, conduct a retreat or advance into a vacated position, breakthrough charge, or a cavalry recall. The player on the winning side may also be required to make additional die roll for a fallen leader. Oh gosh. Table determined that the enemy leader attached to a defeated unit will be removed as a casualty. A unit with a breakthrough charge temporarily holds its position until all first round charge combats have been resolved. Repeat the charge combat procedure until all charge combats have been resolved. After resolving all combat in the current round, move all attacking units into breakthrough charge effect. A second round of charge combat is resolved when one or more breakthrough units have moved into combat with one other enemy unit. Repeat the charge combat procedure until all breakthrough charge combats have been resolved. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to zoom in on this chart. Take a look at that. Some of these charts are, sometimes charts can be a lot, but these don't seem to be too bad. I'll know more when I get a chance to play. And we'll look at, part A, part B, part C, and hopefully that'll make some of that a bit more clear. So, be right back. All right, here's our lovely table. So A was the modifiers. So you got crack units, veterans, trained, green, fresh troops, worn or spent. These are your outnumbered by 3 to 2 or 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, which causes subtractions. Supported guns, unsupported guns, disordered troops, attacker, attached leader or brave colonel adds 1. And then you got formation modifiers over here. Extended line, outflanked, defending, a favorable ground, strong position or fortified. Attacking with cold steel. I got to learn about that. It's come up before, and I don't know what exactly. I think it's, I don't know enough about it. And then cavalry charge over open ground, broken ground, rough ground. So here, your die roll. This is where you subtract away. You get a positive up here or a minus down here, and then you get all of the horrible effects from swept from the field, driven back, hard pressed, desperate struggle in here, falter, recoil, and repulsed. So good stuff. Charge modifier. So you got unit experience. We know that one. We know troop condition. Outnumbered. That's a big one. Supported and unsupported guns. We know about that. We know about attached leaders and brave colonels. I think you can only have 1 per side, but I've seen some of the scenarios where they have more. Extended line. You got outflanked over here. Positions. I don't know where the cold steel is. I got to figure where that is. I might have to revisit that at some point. And then you've got a breakdown of all the effects and particularities of all of that. which was kind of cool, was before we even got to this. Sorry, I'm turning the pages kind of fast. They really do a good job of, they read that first part for you. Then they get into these beige tan areas, and you get like charged situations. They work you through scenarios. You get pictures. It's just a standard one attacker versus one defender. You get one attacker versus multiple defenders here. Multiple attackers versus one defender. And then how to break up complex situations when you have multiples on multiples. Try to make it a little bit easier on yourself. And it's got incidental stands for both of these. So yeah, it's kind of cool. And I think my first couple times of combat, I'm going to have to definitely refer to this a lot, but I'm glad they give you examples of each one of it. And this is where we left off. Okay. All right, let's work through a scenario here. Let's say it's the Union player's turn. We're going to try an attack. Let's see if my camera can keep up with me moving, or if it's going to be a total freak show. Let me at least get the unions right. Sorry, not the units right. Okay, we're going to say the 33rd Ohio over here is going to try to charge, or do a simple, uphill towards these Confederates. So that's our first premise. So the first thing we'll do, we say we've already attached leaders. We won't worry about that yet. And we're going to try to activate this unit and move forward. All right, let's say the 33rd Ohio is their fresh troops. They're in command. They're trained. So we're looking at let's look down here. They're not attached leader, but they're going to be in command. They're trained as a 0 modifier. They're fresh still, no casualties, so they're going to be a +2, and there's nothing else going on. So we'll make a roll and see how they do with a +2 roll. So we get an 8. +2 is a 10. They're in command. They can do a double quick maneuver. All right. They can move forward 18 inches, so we'll go ahead and do that as they charge up the hill. Charging up the hill is broken ground. If you go in any part of different than open ground, you pay the penalty for moving into that. Or what we don't want here is these guys blasting them into we want it. It doesn't really matter. We'll do whatever. So here comes the defensive fire phase. All right, 12 steps, or 12 stands, excuse me, with rifled muskets inside 4 inches. So that's 12. So the 12 will get any of their modifiers? I don't think so. Yeah, that's it. No, they're not disordered like that. So 12 will get you +3. They're not buck and ball. They're not green. They're nothing this. They're nothing that. Boom. They're firing at trained troops. So we're going to roll +3 on this one. So on a 9, on trained, you would get charged checked. So retreat charging unit up to 2 inches away from the enemy. That's telling fire. So the troops disordered and lose 1 stand. So that was what happened. So they would fall back 2 inches from being up against them, excuse me. They'd fall back 2 inches, they'd lose a stand, they'd be disordered. Let's say they rolled like complete poop. So they did, so it's +3. Let's say they rolled a 2. So that would have been like a 5. Been galling fired. Troops disordered or lose 1 stand if already disordered. Charge home. So they'll be disordered. So let's see what that does to hand. When you declare your charge, you have to declare if you're going to charge with cold steel or not. You get a modifier. That means you're not going to shoot. And you get a +1, I believe, to your result. But if you don't do cold steel, you can fire. So that's a pick your poison kind of thing, what you want to do. let's try first. Let's try a with cold steel charge and see how it goes, and then we'll go from there. Let's see how it works out. All right, so the 33rd Ohio is charging with cold steel against the 16th Tennessee, who just fired into them. We'll say they got that galling fire, which disordered the 33rd Ohio. But here they come, and now we'll add up some stuff and see where we're at. So give me a moment while I do some math. All right, looking at the Union. They're trained troops, no modifier. They're fresh troops. They get a +2. So that's good. No one's outnumbered because they're both going to be 12 steps against 12 steps. It's just going to be a one-on-one fight here. The Union is charging with cold steel, so that's a +1, but they are disordered. So they lose that one. So the Union's going to be +2. Going to basically be the exact thing for the Confederacy. They're going to have 12 steps, so they're going to be tied. There's no supports in this one. They can't countercharge because they're not cavalry. So, boom. Both sides going to roll an opposing dice. The black die will be the Union. The red will be the Confederates. And we'll see what happens. So, hold on to your butts. All right, so 7 and 5 is going to be +2 effect because they're attacking. Defender gets taken away from the attacker. It's going to be a hard press. Defender troops disordered and guns silenced. They lose 1 troop stand if already disordered or damage 1 gun stand. Troop retreats 2 inches from enemy. Cavalry may recall. That's not us. Guns limbered. That's not us. Lose fixed guns. Nope. Hold position if fortified with troops disordered and guns silenced. So what's going to happen is they're going to lose a stand. Is that correct? Lose 1 stand if already disordered. No, they don't. So they just become disordered and fall back 2 inches. So that's all that would happen. So both units would end up being disordered. Rebels would fall back 2 inches, and you would be sitting right there. Now, if you want to look at a different way, let's say they chose to not charge with cold steel. They would be disordered. Let's say the Union's going to go ahead and fire a volley on the way in. Now, you have to declare if you are going to charge with cold steel before the enemy shoots you. So that's where you make the decision here, because being disordered, you go in half. So let's say they didn't charge with cold steel. The rebels blast them. They make them disordered. Now they're only firing with 6 steps instead of 12. 6 steps is a 0 modifier, and that's it. So let's see what they would get. So a 6 is galling fire. Troops disordered. So they would just disorder the Confederates, not do any damage. And that would basically be the same effect, because then both sides would be at the same number of stands. They both would be disordered. There wouldn't be any bonus for cold steel in the charge, and it would work out the same way. So there was no benefit there. But not knowing if you're going to take that disorder, you got to make that tactical decision of whether or not you're going to go in, which is kind of cool. All right, so here's another scenario. Now we've got the 33rd Ohio and the 10th Wisconsin supporting it. Let's say they've already survived the fire from the boys from Tennessee, and they're disordered up front. They're charging with cold steel, and Harris is attached to this, and he's a gallant commander. So now let's have a little bit of fun and see what happens. All right, both units are fresh. These guys are disordered. These guys aren't. They're within 3 inches because it's 2 inches unless you're playing. You get that 150% times 150 if it's 28 millimeter or 25. So they're within 3 inches, so they are close enough to support. Let's say those guys aren't even there. So now we get 24 stands attacking 12 with an attached leader. All right, Union first. Trained is 0. Their fresh is +2. I don't have to worry about this. This is going to affect the Confederates. they're disordered, so it's -1, so they're at -1. They go back to +2 because they have an attached leader and they're charging with cold steel, so it's +3 for the Union. Confederates are the same. They're trained, they're fresh, so they're +2. They're outnumbered 2-1, so they go to -2. They're at 0, and they do not have a leader. I guess they're uphill. Would that be considered defending favorable ground? I could consider that, but let's say they're not. We'll work on that. We'll dive into that later as we do more stuff. So they're Confederates at a 0. Union is at a, did I say +3? I can't remember. Let's say it's +3. Let's see what happens with the dice roll. But you can see what happens. That ends up being a desperate struggle. Both sides lose a troop stand. They're both disordered. And then I think they fight again. Yeah, and roll again. Oh boy. So let's do it again. But they would both lose a troop stance, but they're still fresh because they haven't dropped below that. They have to get down to 8, I think it is, or 9 to be worn. And yeah, that goes worn, fresh, worn, spent. So there would be no modifier there. They would fight again. They're both disordered now, so that makes it plus. Oh, they were disordered before, so that makes it even worse. The Confederates are now at -1, and the Union's at +3. I don't think you get the. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but charging with cold steel would be the first round of combat. So you went in there, then you'd run in, stub your bayonet to someone, then fire your gun. I don't think you continue to charge at cold steel after the fact. So it doesn't make sense to me militarily. So as the Union would lose 1 for losing their cold steel, and the Confederates would lose 1 for becoming disordered. So it would still be +2 versus +0. Sorry about that. +2 versus -1. And there it would end up being a falter. Attacker disordered, they or lose 1 stand if order disorder. So they lose a stand and then retreat 2 inches. So that would be how that would end up. Sweet. So not too hard. I mean, yes, you're using tables, but they're pretty quick tables, and it's not that hard of math. And I could see somebody memorizing that pretty quickly. So when you charge, you have to charge straight ahead. You can make some maneuvers, but you're basically going along that line right to the enemy. If that center of your unit ends up being in the flank, that 45-degree angle of that formation we talked about earlier when we were doing shooting, you can charge to the side. You go straight ahead from that unit. You can actually, so let's say, sorry about this. Let's say the Union was over here more and that fence wasn't here. They could go in and attack, and let's say they clipped 2 stands over there. They would be added into the combat being incidental stands, but they'd still fight against them, but they'd get the extra points for those incidental stands from that unit. They'll almost act like a support. From what I can tell, I might have to double check. Supports have to be behind and within 3 inches playing 25 or 28 millimeter. Those cavalry back there cannot support unless they were dismounted. And guns, basically, I think you're screwed if you don't support them. So whenever they get hit, you want to have infantry right behind guns, because there's a big penalty for unsupported guns and supported guns. If the Confederacy, they had won that battle, actually, we know, then we would roll on the wounded leader table, just because it was an attached leader. Let's do that and see if he's dead or not. And a 6 would mean the brigade commander, General Harris, has had his horse shot out from under him, kind of lay him on the side, and he'd be slowed down for a turn until he could get a new horse. And that's it. That's the chart. That is charging and hand-to-hand combat. Not too complicated, I don't think. Charging into a fence, charging around a stone wall, charging into a fortified position. You just add the modifiers. You roll the dice. You compare it. Subtracting away from the attacker. Positive numbers are good for the attackers. Negative numbers are bad for the attackers. And just do what the thing tells you in the little table, and you're done, which is kind of cool. I like the scrum you get. So you roll I think you just keep going until somebody wins or loses, so you could go for a while. But you're chunking away when you get that, what's it called again? When you get that desperate struggle going on, you lose a stand each time. So basically you're still fighting, and it's not decided yet, and you're still brawling, but you're losing stands the entire time. You're taking casualties, and you're just getting disordered. So at some point you're gonna get chopped up. But that's pretty cool. All right, so that's charging. Yeah, pretty much. You can, and it basically, I think you just kind of makes things simple as you can when you're, so if you have a bunch of units fighting in a big scrum, you kind of divide it into base units, and whoever's not involved, you can have your incidental stands, or you can have your supports, and everybody else just kind of try to do it as separately as possible. Break it down, make it easier. Whatever unit is, if you're having 2 units against 1, or whatever unit's contributing the most would be the one you would basically use for the combat. Just primed up my Union infantry. I think I'm gonna not do all these at once because that was just a lot last time. I'm probably gonna do the Marines, and I'm gonna do some guys that kind of look like the Iron Brigade, just to have, because the Union is so boring. I'm just gonna have one regiment that's got the the hardy hats on, and the Marines of course have the white pants and everything, so then the rest of them will all look the same. So that's going to be just my little reward to myself for painting everything the same. Tank wise, I've got those all base painted now. Just gotta kind of weather them and do the treads. There's 2 ISU 152s and another T-34-85, and then I've just started base painting a Jagd Tiger. I'm gonna add all the stripes in of the German cavalry Sturm Tiger. Sorry about that. I cannot wait to fire that. I think it's a 328 millimeter rocket propelled mortar. Like, who wouldn't love shooting that? So a lot of work to do on those. Just started them just a few minutes ago. Can't wait for a chain of command game, and just wanted to finish up at least the basic scenarios for this before I get into playing playing an actual little small battle. I think I'm just going to play a chain of command game because I want to have a few more units on the table before I do a quick little game. But that's charging and hand-to-hand mixed in with some movement. I'm not quite sure how to help you with that. And my Lexus thinks I'm talking to it, but I'm not. And hope that helped. All right, you guys are awesome. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you later.